honestly, some of the formula of why I started looking around from St. Vincent, because I got less busy, believe it or not. I mean, my day, there were some days where it was just sort of, not the whole day, but it was like the pace. Whew. We gonna get started? Holy smokes. All right. Reef. Reef. R-E-I. Long E. Reef.
We're going to go ahead and get started. Again, keynote speaker, and again, if I pronounce the pronunciation wrong, Ralph Reef.
Yes.
Very excited to have Ralph here. A lot of knowledge and experience in athletic training. He's worked multiple Final Fours and Olympics. I know when I started this, I wanted to have a keynote speaker. Thought it'd be something nice, and I always felt every time I go to these conferences that I learn a lot from having keynote speaking. I always enjoyed it. I was worried, am I going to be able to find someone that's going to generate enough interest, that's big enough that would want to come to Manchester University, middle of nowhere, small Division III school, no budget, all that jazz, and willing to speak and share the knowledge. And as I was reaching out, I reached out to Ralph, and I was shocked that he actually responded to the email. I was not only shocked that he responded, I was shocked that he almost responded immediately, like within minutes. And then I was also shocked that he actually said yes. So I was like, oh, wow, that was easy. That was quick. So very excited to have Ralph, a lot of knowledge and experience. And again, this being a sports performance conference, I knew for the keynote speaker, I did not want to have just a strength coach. I wanted to, again, try to tie into athletic training and nutrition and strength coach, which is why we have those speakers. And definitely feel Ralph and his experience in athletic training and working at every level and the best of the best athletes. I know he's going to do a great job. I'm very excited. Prior, again, I'm new to Indiana, but he was executive director at St. Vincent Performance, and he's now just recently accepted or started a new position at Butler University, which he can name that title. It's pretty long. So if you could, please welcome Ralph.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, John. My response being so quick was that didn't have anything going on. No, I grew up about 35 miles straight north of here, and so so that had a lot to do with my excitement to be asked. It's always fun to come back home, and so North Webster, Indiana, is home, and Wawasee High School is where I went to high school. North Manchester was an opponent in a number of sporting events. And so the Reef family does a lot of farming up that way, and so it was fun to get back this way and in some familiar area. And, from a little bit more background as we walk through this, and the reason I'm going to share background is because I believe it adds to my philosophy, and it adds to the story that I'm going to share with you and the information today. So my background, yes, I'm a licensed certified athletic trainer, and that's been the sort of the point of the arrow my entire career. So I'm 61 years old, been at it for 40 years, and started as an athlete in middle school, high school, and so the context here of being a student athlete in high school in the early 70s, almost everybody played every sport. It was just one, you could. I don't remember clubs other than 4-H and FFA, all right, and those clubs. And we had, so I played football, went right into basketball, so did everybody else, or wrestling. And then we went into track and field, and we played baseball in the summer. So high school baseball was in the summer in the 70s. And then we were year-round athletes, but 4 different uniforms and sometimes different coaches and so on and so forth. But so when I started, As a student athlete at Wawasee on a August day like today, and it never seemed to be, I don't remember any days being this nice. I remember them being muggy, humid, couldn't see the sun because of the cloud cover, but it was humid. That's what I remember. I remember cotton pants and cotton jerseys. I have my old McGregor helmet that had a plastic shell but has a leather webbing on the inside. That's what we wore. Baseball or in basketball, the shoes that people were just running to the store to get were Pro-Keds, and then Converse that had the interchangeable colors that you could put on the sides of the shoe to change the color of the chevron. So, water breaks in 1974 in football was that we would get a break and we would run to the benches, as I recall, and we had bathroom-size Dixie cups with an ice cube in it, and somebody poured lemonade over the top of them. All right. Then, by the time I graduated, we were bringing Gatorade in glass jars. We bought it in glass jars. And we would have those in our vehicles and such before practice. And just because it was available, we went to the local convenience store after practices and drank chocolate milk. And we didn't even know it was good for us. It just was, tastes good, right? Who doesn't like chocolate milk? And so water breaks were really new in 1974. My brother, closest to me in age, was a senior at that time. That was the first year, and I know this is relative to focused on football here, but 1973 was the first year in the state of Indiana for playoff football, and we had clusters that we played in. And before we went out to football practice and basketball practice and or baseball practice, we'd go to, in the locker room, mounted to the wall, was a dial-a-tab. You know what was in the dial-a-tab? Salt pills, yeah. Salt tablets. So 1, 6, 12. No guidance that I recall. It was just, and we ingested salt tablets. So, and everybody who was in charge, coaches, everybody meant really well because that was the education we had at the time, all right? Weight room, we bought a new universal machine. How many know what a universal machine is? Maybe you've seen in a museum, all right? So I don't have to fast forward very far here. 1981, when I was at Butler University the first time. So my career started with official job at Butler University. Went to University of Indianapolis, played football, ran track, went to Miami of Ohio for graduate school, came back, got a job at Butler. I took the lowest paying job of 3 offers, Noblesville High School, Center Grove High School, and I took the job at Butler for $15,000. $7,500 to be the head athletic trainer for athletics, the only athletic trainer on staff, and $7,500 to teach in the College of Education, physical education courses. Big money, in 1981. And in 1981, the weight room at Butler University was a universal machine. That's what we had. And so that's where I come from, is water breaks, sort of not silly, but just sort of, why do we need water? Athlete development. You know, I have, and Robbie will see it here, I have in my office, not mounted yet, at Butler, is a scoop shovel. I have a scoop shovel. That was my dad's scoop shovel that became my scoop shovel, and the bottom of the base of it is worn out. And the day of the football playoff game, Wawasee versus Blackford High School in 1974, the game was moved from Friday to Saturday to allow for travel time. And that day, we were picking corn. And so my brother and I, who were playing in the game that Saturday night, were shoveling corn during the day. So there was our functional warm-up, right? Our muscle activation, right? Who knows what Mom made for lunch, but it was probably hefty. Probably had a pretty hefty pregame meal, and we got beat, all right? Not because of any of that. It was just because Blackford was better, all right? But so that's where I come from, is that context of, man, have I seen a lot change. A lot, all right? And I give a lot of credit to this that we're going to talk about to everybody along the journey, all right, that I've been around, who I've observed, who I've listened to, who I've disagreed with, who I've debated with, and that's how I've come to what I believe today. And what I believe a year from now will probably be a little different. I really believe it'll be different because I'm in a whole new environment at Butler. So I've got new people around me, new things to observe, a different lens to look through than I did for 20 years at a sports performance business. So I'm looking through a different lens now. And so I know my philosophy will be challenged. It'll be reshaped a year from now than what I'm going to talk about today with the integrated athlete. And so when I talk about trends and what will change, and will something that's new in sport really catch on, or how long does it take to catch on, is let's go back to hydration. Those of you in this room, think about the conversation, the baseline assumptions that are made by you towards your athletes relative to hydration in 2019. What are some of those assumptions? Talk out loud. You assume that the athletes
usually dehydrated, don't drink enough water.
Yep. But they have resources, right? Bring a water bottle, ad-lib fluid during exercise, during practices. There's posters all over the place. There's commercials on TV. There's thunderbolts and lightning from Gatorade and Powerade and body armor and et cetera. So the assumptions that we have today relative to hydration is, well, it's your own fault if you're not hydrated. Right? In 1974, hydration, why do I need to, thinking about the color of our urine in 1974, I'm not sure that was, why would we worry about that, right? But here's the thing, between 1974 and 2019, I don't really remember any from heat illness. I'm sure it happened. Didn't happen in my environment, didn't happen where I was. And what's changed? Intensity? Expectations? Education changes accountability. And so as we look at hydration, as we look at ways of developing the athlete, and people say, well, what's changed over the last 45, 50 years? It's all changed. Education, awareness, accountability, responsibility, risk management, resources, assumptions, all of those things. And so that's the lens that I look through. So Next year, also at this time, I'll be able to define what this is. I'm in charge of it. So I don't know if that's candy bars, after everybody's done with practice to make everybody feel good, or, no, I know what it is. But it's interesting. It's very interesting. Well-being, what fits into that category. I've been playing with organizational charts for 3 weeks since I took the job. I'm pretty clear on what this is. All right? Pretty clear. I've been in that for 50 years. I'm pretty clear what this is. But man, is this evolving? Has this really evolved? Right? And what's well-being? Mental health. Not right or wrong, but that's a popular answer. Anybody else? Okay. Well-being, part of well-being is feeling safe to have a conversation in the community in which you're in. In a team, in the classroom, one-on-one with my coach or with my peers. That's part of well-being. All right? Every organization needs that to be successful and be healthy. All right? So, talk about ripping the lid off a can of worms here. All right? Absolutely. I know what's in this can of worms. I got those worms marching in order. They are marching. All right? And performance is starting to line up. All right? This one, I'm just calling all the worms. Anybody, whoever's in there, let's go. All right? All right. So, 24-hour, let's go back to this. Integrated athlete management. I've used multiple titles. So this came up from the standpoint that it's my view of what's going on in everything outside of the X's and O's of sport. You get away from the X's and O's, the strategy, the tactics, the winning, the losing, that element, and everything else has changed, is changing, it's evolving, and in some places, big picture here, some places it's very silo categories, boxes, offices, titles, whatever, right? I'm in charge of this, I'm in charge of this, I'm in charge of this, and we don't think about these other things, or we don't talk about these other things, or we don't like those other people, or we don't think they're important, or I've got an ego and it's not their world, it's my world. So we've got all these areas. I say it needs to be integrated. We need to collaborate. Because the athlete is. The athlete's using everything that's coming at them from all those silos, from all those areas of ownership, from the private basketball skills coach who's taking them for 2 hours after a 2-hour on-court team basketball practice, and then they eat something on the way to the private skills coach, and then they get tired. Next year's talk, all right? On load management. Load management. That's new, but it's really not. We've been trying to manage load forever. How'd we land on 2 hours for practice? I don't know. But that's the sort of default number, isn't it? When I talk to coaches across the world, 2 hours practice. 2 hours. Now it might be 90 minutes, might be 2.5. Oh, we go 3. But 2 hours, where'd we land on 2 hours? Is that because the athlete can manage 2 hours? Or the coach can only coach for 2 hours? Or The late bus leaves in 2 hours, and I got to have the athletes on the bus. All right, so there's lots of factors that go into it. 24-hour model. In 1974, I was a 4-sport athlete, 2 hours at a time. 2 hours on Wednesday, I was a football player. 2 hours on Thursday, I was a football player. 2 hours on Friday, I was a football player. We go to basketball. 2 hours. I didn't have film. I didn't have team meetings. I didn't have weight room. I didn't have conditioning. I didn't have tutoring. I didn't have life skills classes. I didn't have X, Y, Z. I didn't have any special skills coach. I shoveled corn, all right? Did chores, went to 4-H club meetings, was in the school play, the Music Man, by golly. But anyway, it was 2 hours. It was the 2-hour model for the student athlete in 1974. And in 1984. So I'm in college, 76 to 80. It was 2 hours. University of Indianapolis, Indiana Central University, when I got there in 1976, we had a universal machine. I don't know who built the universal machines, but man, did they have the market, all right? We didn't have free weights till my senior year. 1979-80, we had a barbell, all right? Things have come a long ways, all right? Now, Manchester just opened or cleaned up or added a bunch of equipment. What's your square footage in your facility here? I saw some pictures online.
The whole thing now, we split the fitness center. We only needed half the size, half the room. I can't remember the exact number. I just got to recommend what we should order.
Yeah.
So,
Josh, what's square footage your facility at Fishers High School? Estimated. 4,000 square feet? Yeah. Yeah. So the weight room at the University of Indianapolis was 400 square feet, because that's about what it took to set a universal machine in the middle of the locker room. All right? So 24-hour model. Today, if we use all the resources that are available to us through GPS, through monitoring, through wearables, through education, knowledge, stress, got to win. Got to get the best players. Got to keep them in line. Got to outdo the opponent. Got to outdo the performance centers. Got to outdo the skills coach who's trying to steal my kids away. It's 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day. We have the capability to manage all 24 hours of an athlete. And so the 24-hour model, all right? So we can, and I'm not saying we should, but we can, and I'm not against any of this, it's just the questions that need to be asked. Should we, and if we do monitor and measure and manage all 24 hours, how are we doing it? Why are we doing it? And there's lots of reasons, there's lots of good reasons to why. Lots of those. And there's lots of good reasons to how. And then there's lots of barriers. I don't believe in it. I don't know what to do with it if I had it. I can't afford it. Resources, big deal, all right? So, things to consider here. So the guiding statements or guiding elements within this model are these things, and the bullet points keep adding in, all right? So respecting the 24-hour nature of the performance culture. GPS, technology, wearables, game changer. How many of you in here know how many steps you've had today? Right? How many know what your heart rate is? Maybe something you're wearing. What my point is, We have access to all of that, all right? Technology has been a significant advantage. How many of you have technology in your weight rooms from a standpoint of measuring speed, velocity, feedback? Yep. So it's there, it's available, right? So respecting the fact that it's a 24-hour culture, where we go with this when I say respecting that culture is, how do we communicate? How do we share? How do we collaborate? What's the focus of that? Keep going back to the why, all right? I could measure sleep on every athlete at Butler University. Why? Who in here wants to answer the question of their position on the value of sleep in athletics? What's a general statement somebody might throw out? Need sleep. Need sleep. Well, I need sleep to work in a factory. I agree with you. I need sleep to be a farmer. Increases performance. The absolute best recovery tool we can have is a good night's sleep. Lots of research on it. More research comes out every cycle, every quarter, more research. Sleep is awesome. But we sort of, as a culture, we haven't really bought in yet, right? My vintage, sleep is overrated. Sleep is a weakness. What I say to my generation is, you're stupid. That's silly. But, the John Gruden rule of sleep, right? In there at 3:30, 4 in the morning, and let's go. Hey, I am an early bird. I love it. I'm not so good on the backside anymore, all right? I can start as early as anybody wants to start. And man, am I good in the morning, all right? But my battery is not what it used to be, all right? My 26-year-old son comes home from working as an athletic trainer. This happened last week. He's staying with us. And before he moves into another part of the state. And he comes home, gets home about 9 o'clock. He's working at Carmel High School, helping out this week as an athletic trainer. Gets home from soccer practice about 9 o'clock at night, fixes himself something to eat, and heads out the door. I'm heading out the door into the bedroom, all right? He goes out the door, gets home at 2 in the morning, gets up at 5:30, and heads back to work. Man, he can do that. Should he? Does he do it every night? No. And I don't mean to paint a picture that my son goes on 3.5 hours sleep every night. But, and I had that discussion with him. I said, man, I used to do that, And sometimes it wasn't for fun. It was the bus pulled into Fieldhouse at 2 in the morning, and I had treatments the next morning or early football during basketball. It is what it is. Sleep is enormous. If you want to, I don't know how many of you follow stuff on social media, on Twitter, but Dr. Amy Bender is a really good follow. And if you want to Google some research on sleep, Amy Bender, PhD, she's with the Canadian Institute for Sport. She's got her degree in experiential psychology from the University of Washington, and she's as common and normal. She makes really hard stuff really simple, and so she's a good person as a resource on sleep. And she's really dedicated her work towards the physically active, the athlete. And so when I'm putting things in place relative to this 24-hour model and I'm focusing on sleep, it's not Ralph Reef says, it's Ralph Reef is the conduit of information from people who spend their life and their education on those things. And that's part of the model, is I'm not trying to invent anything myself. I'm the conduit. I'm the resource, all right? My work is I got to turn around and I got to go find that stuff. And I've got to filter it. And I've got to make sure it's what we're supposed to be doing. Facilitate an athlete-centered model. We're going to see a couple of slides on this in a little bit, and we'll come back to that. Considerations of well-being for everyone. There's that WB. Well-being. It's part of the guiding statements. How are we with today's 14 to 24-year-old? How are we managing their world? How are we helping their world? Because their world has more, every generation's dealt with it, right? I had long hair at one point in time, and my parents and older brother and sister thought I was Charlie Manson. Now, if you don't know who Charlie Manson is, you can Google that, little American history. Not good history, but anyway. Every generation has their deals, right? This generation, you know that the current college student athlete, or college student, connects with their family 10 times a day. My phone, all right, fell off. But 10 times a day. When I was in college, Sundays, I'd line up in the hall with other people and take my turn at the payphone. I'd call home. Hey, everything's cool. All right, good. Bye. And a week would go by or a little more. Now it's 10 times a day. So you think their world isn't different than what ours is? I mean, regardless of whether you're 25, 35, 45, 55. If you're 15 years old, we've got to help in ways that we've never had to help. Manage to your expertise and integrate to build a team. All right? Now, if you read this, I'm going to guess that most of you, when I say manage to your expertise, most people default to thinking, stay in your lane. Don't go over your boundaries. Don't step into my world. What I'm saying is, manage to your expertise. Get to the limits of what you know. That's a different way of looking at it. You know? So I had a boss tell me one time, we were talking about managing people, work to your job description. All right? Work to your job description. Don't just settle in. There's some other things on that job description that you haven't touched yet. All right? Work to your experience and expertise. If you're licensed, certified, educated, so on and so forth, that everybody in this room is, push to the edge. Challenge yourself, all right? And integrate that knowledge with others. Some people are isolated. I get it, all right? Most aren't. Build to a team, all right? A culture of evolving resources. Yeah. How many of you know how many wearables there are, right? How many, it doesn't take long to look in a vendor's catalog or go online and Google something, and how many different, there's just a lot of choices, right? A lot of choices. And it's constantly evolving, all right? But why do you select what you select? Athletic training and physical therapy, very evidence-focused. It's got to be evidence-based. But there's a balance here that the experiential evidence is very important also. All right? Intuition, experience, gut feeling, being able to read your athletes. All right? We can't interact with athletes based on evidence. We interact with athletes based on who we are and how we interact with them. That's experiential. And the more you go along your line, and rely upon your experience. How did I handle this situation before? How did I interact? How did I get burned last time? All right? Constantly integrating necessary endings. There's a book I read a couple years ago by Henry Cloud called Necessary Endings. It's a good read. It's the only book I've ever read about that subject of making the end of something a consistent process. All right? I don't mean to name drop in here, and I'm not doing this for name dropping purposes, but it's the conversations I'm in, and I learn from these conversations. I was talking with Brad Stevens with the Boston Celtics the other day, and we were talking about my job at Butler. He's got a history with Butler. And we were talking about things, and I said, hey, we're talking about, the summer and managing basketball, college basketball over the summer. They get 8 hours now a week. No one across the country really has it figured out. And I said, hey, we're talking amongst the coaching staff of when they come back from break, they've got a break from like August 14th to school starts on the 28th. They'll come back and do the Bulldog Mile. All right? So, why? Because we've always done the Bulldog Mile. What relevance to college Division I basketball does the mile have? Not much. And so LaVall Jordan, the current head coach, is like, should we do it? Should we not? We should not, is my vote, until we answer the questions, why? What are we going to learn from it? How are we going to use the information from it? What if everybody fails? What if the wheels come off? If everybody does really great, it's a rallying point, and so Brad's point was, yep, one thing I've learned since his transition from college to pro basketball, one thing I've learned is you don't just do things because you've always done things. And that's necessary endings. That's the philosophy of that book. It's how to make a process out of evaluation, discussion, learning, so that when you do end something, it's not the end of the world. It's part of the process. We change the forms we use. We might throw away something that we used to use a lot, and it's not this earth-shattering, hey, come in here. We need to stop running the Bulldog Mile. Oh, jeez. No, saying, hey, we've gone through our process, and our process says, we can do something else that's more relevant, that's more in line with what we're trying to achieve. Necessary endings and necessary beginnings, right? So how do we start something new? How do we create rationale? How do we do justification? Why do we do certain things? You're going to hear me say it, and you've already heard it a lot. Why? 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 Keep peeling the onion, all right? And those are uncomfortable discussions. When people, I still bristle sometimes, and I have to sort of breathe and self-talk. The person's not telling me I'm wrong. They're just asking me why. That's what I do when somebody says, Ralph, why are you doing that? You know what I hear? Ralph, you're wrong. No, that isn't what they said, Ralph. What they said was, can you justify why you're doing it? Or can you educate me on why you're doing it? But my first response, you're telling me I'm wrong? So, getting used to that kind of integrated, collaborative discussions is important. The litmus test. 2 of my favorite words. Is it safe and is it ethical? Knock on the door. Hi, I'm your salesman here. I've got this new canister of supplements. I'd like for you to try it. Well, we don't use supplements here. Or, yeah, I'll take those. All right? Or, hey, let's try I saw a new program at this conference at Manchester. All right? And I'm going to go back and integrate it with this. Are we thinking, is it safe? And all the things that fall under safe, right? I'm not going to get somebody in trouble from drug testing. I'm not going to make somebody sick. I'm not going to injure somebody. I'm not going to create a problem for my organization. And ethical, is it the right thing to do? Notice that I don't have up here illegal. Is it legal or illegal? If it doesn't get here, I don't care what the other words are. All right? Cost, all those things. Hey, it's legal. Yeah, but is it ethical? Is it safe? All right? That's a big responsibility. Constant, with athletes, particularly at the where my arena now, the collegiate level, is if we're making a recommendation, man, do we know what other medications that student athlete is on? Do we know the history of that student athlete? This is hard work. In the hustle bustle, management of the day, and that's the biggest challenge in athletics, the absolute biggest challenge. I know that all of you in a team, busy, school, club environment, you're just busy. And you're managing what's right in front of your nose. And to take time to check the evidence, to check with a colleague, it's hard work, right? Takes time. And you have to tell the people in front of you, hey, coach, I need 24 hours to get the answer to this. Wow. Right? Got to set a culture. You got to manage that. Safe and ethical. If you can answer those questions, then you're going to have good night's sleep. Is it safe and is it ethical? The model's a lifestyle. Healthcare and performance continuum. I'm in the midst of writing a book, and one of the chapters that I have in the book is on lifestyle. From the standpoint that lifestyle unwinds everything we're trying to wind into the athlete. Let me give you a healthcare example. I know Sharon, healthcare provider. I have a athlete with a foot injury. Let's say a Liz Frank injury, had surgery, coming back from it, and I'm working, a lot of treatment time, all this kind of stuff. And the athlete goes, Sharon's at Purdue, and all of a sudden the person's coming back after walking all over campus, and they come shuffling in their sandals. Oh, what are you wearing sandals for? Because every college kid wears sandals in August and September, all right? Yeah, but man, we've been working on this foot, trying to get your arch, the spring ligament, trying to get that integrity back and all this kind of stuff. And well, yeah, and I went canoeing, and we were walking around barefooted, and I was running, my foot was hurting. Yeah, I noticed my foot was hurting me. So they just unwound everything that Sharon wound into that process by a lifestyle choice. It wasn't malicious. It was uninformed. So lifestyle, as we're managing the 24 hours of the athlete, and we're trying to get positive outcomes, we're trying to win. We're trying to have personal best, right? We're trying to move towards something with a great outcome. Along the way, we need support from the student athlete to be accountable, not entitled, but be accountable to being part of the process. And you're all in athletics. You've all heard those. You've been either as an athlete yourself or in locker rooms or coaches talk, all that kind of stuff is about performance, so on and so forth. But it's the little things. It's the little lifestyle things like nutrition, hydration, wearing the right equipment, managing your equipment so it works properly. Lifestyle. So it's this commitment. We're monitoring 24 hours of the athlete, so we need 24 hours of the athlete lifestyle to be adapted to that. Learn your playbook. All right. Then go get drunk. And then be tired all day. And then recite the playbook. Why'd you miss that play? Lost focus. Why? Reef, what'd you do last night? Well, my friends went out, I went out. Did you sleep much? No. How many nights is that? Well, then I had a test. Yeah, I'm flat out worn out. And you can't remember the plays in the playbook, right? So it's lifestyle. So it's another way of saying we have rules. But in this era, I believe when we look at the well-being, it's how do we sell that? How do we sell that in this integrated model? If Sharon's the physical therapist and taking care of my athlete and getting them better, and I'm the strength coach or skill development stuff, we better chat so that we're on the same page. As she hands off to me, I better have an understanding of what her expectations are. What did she tell the student athlete? Then what am I going to tell the student athlete? Are we all heading the right direction? Are we managing the well-being of the student athlete? Or is the student athlete there as they're looking at you and you're telling them and you're giving them instructions and they're thinking, that isn't what Sharon said. But they don't say anything, which is 90%, right? Because 90% of athletes are pretty darn good people that want to be successful and they want to please the person in front of them. Well, Sharon said like 10 out of 100 are going to say that, right? In front of somebody who's their superior or who's in charge of their playing time. So, man, we better integrate. We'd better communicate. Or who fails? Student, the athlete. They quit. And there's no greater gift in life than being part of a team. Being part of a team for an athlete changes their life. Being part of that community. All right? Manage to optimize event time, the outcome. It's about the goal. All right? Process, we got to follow all those things. But man, keep an eye on the event time. And plan to manage change in wind direction. All right? Plan to manage, I don't feel good today. Plan to manage, my boyfriend sent me a text right before I came into the weight room and I'm a mess. So is today a good day for max output in the weight room? No. How do you know that? That's hard. It's hard. I don't have the magic answer. But that's the stuff we're all dealing with in all of this, okay? So, going back to this, I'm going to spend time, I bet this thing's got a little flashlight on it, doesn't it? But I also have an arm that can point to it, all right? So, facilitate an athlete-centered model. We're going to spend time on this, athlete-centered model. This is the core of the apple right here, all right? So, this came from, this is not a Ralph created, all right? So a friend of mine at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga has spent a lot of time researching this stuff, and he speaks on it and all kinds of things, mainly around health care, all right? The Institute of Medicine says that care that is respectful and responsive to the individual athlete, their preferences, needs, and values, and ensures that the athlete values guide all clinical decisions. That's an athlete-centered model. That's the definition of athlete-centered, all right? So morph that to a sports environment, get rid of the Institute of Medicine and put the institute of your school or your performance center or where it might be, right? And say, I care about the student athlete. All right? So at Butler University, right, wrong, or indifferent, the guy that they've given that long title to right now really believes this. I really believe this. All right? So that's going to guide a lot of things. Now, when I talk about athlete-centered, it's not athlete entitled, athlete not responsible. I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to protect them. No, it's athlete is respected. I will respect the student athlete. And I, as a part of the performance team, will take the responsibility to look out for the well-being of the student athlete. That's athlete-centered, in Ralph's opinion, all right? There are facilitators to athlete-centric model, and there are barriers to the model. Facilitators. Can you see that from back there? All right, yeah, there's just more glare here, sorry. So, this all blends together, sort of think of the athlete here, all right? Facilitating the athlete-centric model is, we've talked about this, we're going to collaborate. So, dietitian, team physician, position coach, athletic trainer, strength coach, speed coach, sports psychologist, mental health advocate, counselor, academic advisor. Let's be good teammates. That doesn't mean we don't disagree. That doesn't mean we don't stand up for what we believe in. It just means that we're going to talk to one another. We're going to integrate, and we're going to collaborate, and we're going to respect the fact that everybody has a voice. All right? But it's my job as the senior athletic director in charge of all that stuff. I'm the one that ultimately has to filter the noise, grab the collaboration, and point the direction if it doesn't take care of itself. All right? Honest. Be honest. Equality. All right? Accountability. Be trustworthy. Be a good teammate. Be part of the staff. Be trustworthy. Can I trust you to when we walk out of the room and we've had a conversation and I've talked to Sharon about the health care of this athlete's foot and we're going to go over in the weight room and today is a lower leg day and I've got to make some adjustments because this person isn't going to do plyo boxes today, but I can find some other things to do that I can hand off and I can trust. Got to build that. All right? Got to build it. Got to be accountable. Humility. I think this is a big piece of facilitating a good collaborative staff is that we seek knowledge. I congratulate all of you on the most beautiful Saturday we've had in 7 years, all right? And you're inside this no-window auditorium educating yourself. That's a big deal. You seek knowledge, and it doesn't have to be by coming to an event. It can be like, hey, hang on, coach, I don't have the answer to that. I'm going to find the answer to that. Hey, mom, I don't have the answer to that, but we're going to find the answer of that for your daughter. Give me X amount of time to find the answer. Hey, I've got a network of people I'm going to talk to, and we're going to come to I'm going to get more information. Hey, I'm going to go talk to the athletic director about this because I want to be clear. All right? So, seeking knowledge, being humble about it. Empathy. I believe that I believe at the core of everyone who's in the business of athlete development, which we all are, somewhere in our DNA, some have more, some have less, some show it more, some show it less, but we have some level of empathy. We care. Use it. People don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. People don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. It doesn't mean we're playing soft music and we're giving them fresh towels all the time. And no, sports is hard. All right? It's hard. You're going to hear some words you wouldn't say at the kitchen table. There's some people who are going to cry. There's some people who are going to hurt. It's hard. So is life. I've lost 2 parents. That's not easy. I'm still standing. Because people have empathy for me. People help me through it. All right? So, those are things that facilitate. Uh-oh, I found that light. I found the light. Here we go. Barriers. It is about me. Now, this can be subtle. The top one, let's start up there. I'm Ralph Reef. I'm in 4 Hall of Fames. I'm 61 years old. I'm a senior associate athletic director at a Division I school in the Big East. I know everything. Nope. No. That was a hard lesson for me to learn, that I need to ask questions, because I took the load in my previous job. I took the load at St. Vincent Hospital, running sports medicine, then it became sports performance, became this thing, and I didn't know everything. And it was pretty humbling when all of a sudden I didn't know the latest and greatest about something because I wasn't in the clinical care, the training of the athletes every day. I had other things to do. And man, I learned that by looking in the mirror and saying, hey, Ralph, you can't go this way the rest of your life and not saying to the people around you who are 20 years younger than you and ask them to teach you something. I had to learn that. I learned it the hard way. That's why it's made its way onto this grid, because to me, it's a big deal that a great team, a great staff can be limited in its performance if we don't ask each other for assistance. And if we don't raise our hand, regardless of our position, regardless of our pecking order, regardless of what we think might happen, but we've got to be able to ask questions. That is a huge, huge log in the eye of perfection. If we say, I'll just keep going, doing what I've always done, all right? Turf protection. Stay in your lane, bro. Seen that commercial? Guys, I don't know what they're selling, but I love that line of guys doing the tattoos. You say, don't you think I stay in your lane, bro? All right? Turf protection. I see this. I deal with it a lot. Sometimes it's driven financially. All right? Don't go to the chiropractor. Don't go to the neurologist. Go to the physical therapist. Go to the acupuncturist. Go to the dry needle. And that's all driven by money. Not all, but it's a big part of it. What is it within the non-revenue environments? I'm the big cheese. I don't want to lose my spot. All right? And I get all that. There is a self-preservation piece to all of this, right? But that's what I'm trying to say is you got to get past self-preservation to do the best thing for the people that you're asked to work for good outcomes. And you go through that, you come out the other side really in a good position. Really in a good position. Get rid of your own self-interest. It's okay to be self-motivated. It's okay to say, I want to learn more. I want to be better. I want to be a part of that team. I have goals. But don't make everything about your own self-interest at the expense of the student athlete. Then we have lost respect for those in whom we are given the opportunity to impact. Entitlement. I am the senior athletic director, so I'm entitled to. No, I've been at Butler like 22 days. I'm entitled to like nothing. All right? I've got to earn it. I'm glad I have that attitude. It has served me well. I still wonder why I get nervous at age 61, but it's who I am, right? Ego, overconfidence. Overconfidence hurts people. Overconfidence gets people hurt. Overconfidence kills football players at Maryland. It's all public record. If you haven't read it, read the public record about everything that happened at Maryland last June. And Matt Canada, who is the interim head coach, good friend of mine, we've talked tons about it. It's things like this that kill athletes. Don't let it happen. All right? Get them better. Good outcomes. Have fun. Slap each other on the back when you're going to the field and you're coming off the field. And slapping each other on the back can be slap the dietitian, slap the coach, slap the athlete, slap the strength coach, slap the athletic trainer. We're in this together. All right? In it together. Build the team. These are some of my former colleagues. Find that. That's a race car driver, Joseph Newgard. Anybody follow IndyCar in here? Yeah. He's a big deal. That's a big team, Penske. So athletic trainer, strength coach, athletic trainer, strength coach, athletic trainer, CSCS credential. These two CSCS credential, as well as ATC. Collaborating. All right? And what you don't see in the picture is everybody that influenced them, that they take with them to take care of him. All right? And others. So we are conduits. We are conduits of the information that we gain from others, that we take from those who are around us. All right? So the different elements to this, you can see I'm fatiguing now, right? Now I'm using the light, so I used to run over there. All right? If this were in the morning, man, I'd be sprinting over to that side. All right? Strength, speed. I separate these two. So here's my personal belief. I believe that certified strength and conditioning coaches default to being really good at strength development. And not so much speed development. And I believe it's that way because that's what the certified strength conditioning specialist has been asked to do. We build weight rooms. We don't build speed drones. So I just think it's a factor of 80 years of development. I really hope that speed becomes a common speed development, movement, mobility, pliability, flexibility becomes a big, big focus, default area. That when I'm interviewing certified strength conditioning coaches in my tenure at Butler, that speed and strength, movement, mobility, pliability, recovery, man, it just flows. Am I way off base that the profession is sort of really peaks toward, because that's what's been asked. All right? They didn't hire David at Zionsville High School to build speed. Strength first, right? Yeah. So, performance. That's a big bundle, right? That's sort of like well-being, right? Healthcare, nutrition, your mental health. Now, mental health and sports psychology are two different birds. Here's a quote from Gene Cady. I'm sure some of you in this room remember Gene Cady was head basketball coach at Purdue for a long time. And when I first started at St. Vincent, and I worked with Gene with USA Basketball, and we had some great times together. So I'm so old that Steve Lavin, who's on Fox TV now, was coach at UCLA, all that kind of. Steve Lavin was a student manager for me with USA Basketball when Gene Cady and Jim Boeheim were the coaches. And Boeheim was young, all right? So Gene Cady would say to Denny Miller, who was a longtime athletic trainer at Purdue, and we were starting sports psychology at Purdue through St. Vincent Sports Performance. And he'd say, I'd really love for basketball to use sports psychology, but Coach Cady, when I bring it up, Coach Cady says, I don't need a psychologist, I'll motivate them. So think about that statement. And motivation, right, is not sports psychology. Mental health and sports psychology overlap significant, but they can be separated, all right? So at Butler, we will have a mental health, plan and resources right on campus. Clinical psychologists, counselors, all right, social workers to manage mental health. Sports psychology, and there are laws that govern this. So I can't walk a student athlete over to the counseling center at Butler and say, hey, Counselor John, clinical psychologist John, would you talk to my student athlete here? She and I, we've had some conversation. That clinical psychologist will turn and run away because that's unethical and unlawful to force a person to clinical psychology. All right? Interesting. All right? Sports psychology, even if they're clinical psychologists, in the realm of sports psychology, I can bring an athlete and say, hey, can you two chat? Yep, sure, come on, sit down. Let's have a chat. Laws there we got to filter through and take care of. So mental health, big deal. Sports psychology, performance anxiety. Man, great athlete in the weight room. Great athlete on combine days. Great athlete Monday through Thursday. Friday night football, choke. Underperformer. Could use some help from sports psychology. Might be a mental health issue underlying. Sports psychologists can help get to that. That's a big, complex area, all right? if anybody leaves here and goes, man, I'm really confused by mental health, sports psychology in my community or school where I'm at, give me a call. Let's talk through it, because it's complex, but don't ignore it. Get comfortable with it. All right? So feel free to call me. And the sports science. Sports science, another part of the system is leaning on those who love to research, who are built to do research. All right? Sometimes you get a great balance of application. In other words, they're in the weight room, they're in the training room, they're in the environment, or they're in the laboratory. They're usually separated, and that's a problem in the United States. It is a problem in the United States. If you ever want to read good sports science, there's a lot of it out there. Another name I'll give you is Xavi, spelled X-A-V-I, Schelling, S-H-E-L-L-I-N-G. Xavi, X-A-V-I, Schelling, S-H-E-L-L-I-N-G. He's the director of athlete performance for the San Antonio Spurs. He's from Barcelona, Spain. He's been with the Spurs for about 8 years. Relatively unknown. I mean, like, no one knows he's there except the Spurs and everybody in the NBA. But he just pumps out research. And it's good, applicable research. Like, how should we make decisions about wearable technology? Instead of having like an opinion on it, he'll go and research it and then write a paper on it. The guy's just a machine, all right? So sports science is the fuel for our engine, all right? Sports science, it fuels our engine so that we can apply it, all right? Communicating, I'll finish with this, I think. Oh, we're almost there. We're almost 1 minute over. Communication. If you haven't been to Hinkle Fieldhouse, that's the inside of Hinkle Fieldhouse. Communication, real quick. Be intentional. It's one of my favorite words, my favorite new words in the last 24 months. I'm going to be intentional about that. I'll change words here shortly because I'm wearing it out with my family and people I work with. But being intentional. Is it meaningful conversation? Is it meaningful communication? Or am I just listening to myself? Okay? One voice. Who's going to be in charge of this collaboration? Maybe in your environment there's no choice. You are CEO, president, secretary, treasurer, right? Bottle washer. Maybe, but there needs to be a decision, a collaboration. And be inclusive. This goes back to the athlete model. Don't be afraid to include, all right? 24-hour model. Plan intentionally about activation, focus. One area we haven't talked about today, I can come back next year and talk forever on recovery. Love recovery and all that's going on in that realm. How many of you spend time, raise a hand, on recovery after whatever you're coaching or doing? All right. Recovery is, I would say, of our physical plant, space for recovery. I hadn't thought about this till I just said this. But our pools, we have lines out the training, and our training room is pretty good size. And we have lines waiting to get into the cold tank, which can hold 12 people. We have lines of women's soccer, men's soccer, football, this time of year during camp. I mean, they just line up. I don't know where they learned it. I just got there. So I don't know where they learned that I need to go get in a cold tank, because it just like happened on day one. So, and I haven't had a chance to really talk to my staff. But recovery, and then we've got nutrition and all that kind of stuff. That's a big part of it. But foam rollers, Normatec boots, some of these things, again, resources, right? But recovery, sleep. time off. Recovery isn't only physical. So one of the great challenges I have next week until Wednesday, men's basketball is off after Wednesday afternoon, and they all leave campus. We're having coaches conversations right now, and our strength coach, Matt Johnson, who's with men's basketball, we're talking about what's the message we're going to push onto the basketball team. And that message has to be supported by everybody on the staff. So Matt Johnson can't have a different message than Ralph Reef and the head basketball coach. We've got to fully agree, so we've got to have this meeting over here saying, what message do we give people, these basketball players, when they're gone for 12 days? Meaning, it's okay, this is Ralph's script. It's okay to be lazy. I don't want you calling your skills shot coach. Don't go back to your high school gym or your personal training gym. Don't go. I want you to rest. Matter of fact, I want you to come back a little sloppy. I want you to be hungry to get back at it. I want you to be itching. I want you to drive your family crazy because you're not doing anything. You'll get over that. It'll take a few days. Most of you in this room have that same problem yourselves. You go, 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 and all of a sudden, hey, I got a day off. What do I do? I need to do something, right? So my message is I want the athletes during this time period, because my goal, the outcome is I want them really fresh in February. When we're playing down the stretch, I want them fresh mentally. And so now's the only break they have till next August, literally. So recovery, fill their tank. Let them recover. It's more than physical, all right? And manage aware. 3 questions, and I'll go through this really quick. One of the new trends that I'm seeing across global sport is mood questions. So San Antonio Spurs, real quick. So Will Sevening, Carmel High School grad, 21 years, head athletic trainer with the San Antonio Spurs. Every day, practice, workouts, game, on the road, home, whatever, Will's with them. Every day, he asks those 3 questions to every player. They accumulate the answers. Javi takes the information, analyzes it, manages workload based on their answers. That's a complex system. Look at the success rate of the San Antonio Spurs over the last decade of days lost to injury and wins and losses. It's pretty good. And this is what they do. I had the same conversation with Brad Stevens with the Celtics, and you know what the Celtics said, or Brad said? We're sort of trying to figure out who's going to ask those questions. The Spurs worked through that. You know what the Spurs used to do? They had an intern. Player walks in. Hey, how'd you sleep last night? Get away from me. Right? Are you sore? Who cares? What's your mood? 3. And they just keep walking. So the data they got was awful. The players didn't buy in at all. So what they do? Good old reliable Will Sevening, athletic trainer, been there, won a lot of world championships, 21 years, knows their spouses, knows everybody in the front office, knows people. They trust him, trustworthy. Will ask the questions. Boston Celtics, their staff, athletic trainer, sports science, weight coach, all new over the last 3 years. So there isn't a Will Sevening. So Brad knows they need to get those answers, believes in the system. They don't have the right person yet. So who's ahead? The Spurs. It's that kind of stuff that adds to the outcome we all want. We all want a successful, sustainable, integrated performance platform that people want to aspire to be a part of. People aspire to be a part of the San Antonio Spurs. It's an unbelievable organization. Others are trying to replicate it. All right? So, that's integrated, 24-hour athlete. There's a lot to it. It's amazingly fun. It's challenging as all get out. You just take one line of all of these 9 slides and you can spend a whole lot of time on it. All right? But if you just sort of back up and say, how can I best use the knowledge that I have, work to my credentials, work to my level of expertise, work to communicate, focused on those with whom I have the responsibility to get better and to take care of. Keep churning that process. And then take all the good stuff you learned this morning, the things you're going to learn in the next sessions that are specific and so forth, and you start to, all right, where does it fit? Where does it work? Who else should I tell about this? What more reading can I do? Anyway, I'll stop. That's it. All right? We good?
Yep.
Thank you for your attention. And I just got new business cards. How about if I give them to you? Because if you want to email me, text me, smoke signals work, and we'll go from there. Yeah. I think.
Just a quick reminder as we go into the last session. Again, there's a survey. I know some of you guys may have picked it up. If you lost it or whatnot, before you leave, again, you can fill that out and just drop it on the desk. That would be great. Again, that will help so we can improve this in the future years to come. And I ask you to be brutally honest. That way we can make